Hi, I'm Igor Smirnov and I'm glad to welcome you to the next lesson of the Breaking Stereotypes series. Here I'd like to discuss an exchange of the fianchettoed bishop. You know, this is one of the most common stereotypes for sure. Lots of chess players think that it's always useful to trade an opponent's fianchettoed bishop. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say black castled kingside and has a fianchettoed bishop there. Obviously, this is only a part of the position. In such situations, a lot of players try hard to trade this fianchettoed bishop. So, when they play white, they start making moves something like bishop f4, then queen d2 and bishop h6, trying to exchange this fianchettoed bishop. They believe that this gives them great attacking chances. However, often it's incorrect and often it's rather a time wasting, because you see that white needs to make several moves just to exchange two equal bishops. Very often black has a lot of pieces around his king, something like this. So if you trade one of these pieces, it doesn't really favor your attack, and it doesn't make your future attack successful. A success of your attack depends on an activity of your position in a whole, and a single piece is not so important here. An exchange of the fianchettoed bishop is nearly always useful just in one situation. If you can start the attack on the h-file by pushing the pawn there and trade the pawns on the h-file, so this will look like this. In such situations, you really need to exchange the g7 bishop, because you're going to penetrate the black's territory by using the h6 and the h8 squares, while the black bishop covers these squares. So if you can't develop an attack on the h-file, then you really need to exchange the g7 bishop, and this is a correct idea in most of the situations. Okay, now let's analyze some concrete examples, and then we'll discuss this idea in more details. In this position, white played bishop h6. I'm pretty sure that quite a lot of players would make the same move. At the same time, this is a huge mistake. Here, I'm going to tell you the key idea. When you're trying to exchange two pieces, first of all, you should compare their activity. And of course, you should try to exchange your less active pieces on an opponent's more active pieces. This is the key idea, and you should orient on this most of all. Like in this position, we can see that the bishop on the e3 is much more active than the black's passive bishop on the g7, which has no possible moves at all. So of course the move bishop h6, which spans two tempos just to trade his active bishop, is a huge mistake. Okay, let's see what happened in the game. Bishop h6, exchange, bishop takes, a4. I don't comment on these moves too much, they are not important for us. Then knight g3. You see that white is trying to bring the pieces to the king side and develop an attack there somehow. White believes that the position of the black's king is weakened because of an exchange of a fianchettoed bishop. However, it's not correct. Black has a lot of pieces around his king. The knight on f6, pawn on e5, queen e7, and so on. Therefore, we may say that the black's dark squares are not weak really, because white has no practical way to use these weaknesses somehow. h6, rook e1, here let's say knight c5, and after all black got even a slightly better situation. The white's remaining bishop on the d3 is quite passive. Also white has weaknesses on the dark squares, d4, f4. In the future black will try to use them. Since white has no dark squared bishop, it will be difficult for white to protect these squares. And these are all the results of the white's incorrect plan bishop h6 trying to start an attack on the king side. Now let's go back and we'll see what could happen if white choosing the correct plan. Here is the starting position of this example again. Let's see what happens if white do all the same moves just except bishop h6. If white just takes on the e5, then plays a4, b4, knight e2, and then here something like c3, attacking the black's weak pawns on the queen side. Then after b takes and queen takes, we can see that the white's position is very good. Black has weak pawns there on the queen side and a lot of weaknesses around them. The black's bishop on the g-zone is totally passive and out of game, while the white's dark squared bishop is making a really good job. It controls a lot of squares on the black's territory and creates an unpleasant pressure on the black's position. Now white has a very comfortable situation, and in the future white will simply attack all the black's weak pawns and squares. Okay, now let's go to the next example. Okay, here is the next example, and in this position black also played queen d-zone, trying to prepare the move bishop h3. By the way, the black's player is quite a strong player. I guess he's a grandmaster. At the same time, I hope that you understand that here the move queen d-zone with an idea of bishop h3 is incorrect. This is a really bad idea. Black needs to make 1, 2, 3 moves just to exchange his active bishop on the e6 on his passive counterpart on the g2. Certainly this can't be a good idea. Okay, let's see what happened then. f4, c6, king h1, and here black made this mistake, bishop h3. Again, first it's a time wasting, secondly it trades more active piece on an opponent's less active one, and finally in this situation it allows white to play f5, which gives white good attacking possibilities on the king side and a space advantage. Now after bishop takes and king takes, white got a very nice position. Then he'll play bishop g5, maybe h3 g4, and he can develop a pawn assault there, and in any case white has a very good situation. And this happened only because of the black's mistake bishop h3. Instead, black could play something normal like knight a6, finishing the development and getting an unclear position with mutual chances. Here is the next example, and in this position black played bishop h3. It's quite the same mistake as we have seen in the previous games. In this position, since the white's central pawns are on the light squares, the white's f3 bishop is not very much active. So we may say that it's a bad piece in this pawn structure, and that's why the black's idea of playing bishop h3 rather helps white to trade his passive bishop. White played a5 first and then bishop g2. Black took there, then a6. Okay, I'll make the following moves quickly. It doesn't matter too much. I just want to show you how bad it will be for black very soon. f4, knight takes, bishop f4, f6, knight a4. Now white simply is attacking the black's weak squares. Queen h5, bishop e5, then queen g4, and the white's position is winning. In the final position you can see that black has a lot of troubles on the light squares. Black created this situation by himself when he played bishop h3, trying to exchange the white's fianchettoed bishop.